First, I'm going to go through this slide really quickly and then spend a little bit more time on some parts of it. So your session title, an important piece, but please know that everything that you submit has the potential to be amended if your proposal is accepted. Session goals. So what we're looking for is 1 to 3 goals that convey what attendees will learn, be able to do, or have a greater understanding of as a result of your session. A short description of your session, and really no more than 3 sentences. Imagine that this would be in a booklet or an online agenda for attendees or potential attendees to read. It should be short and to the point. Topic tracks. So we give you an opportunity to choose which topic or topic tracks you feel best align with your proposal, which also gives the review team some information about what you're thinking. Who is your intended audience? And this actually leads me to a point where I realized I should have given you a little bit more information about who comes to LEAD. So I'll do that now through the intended audience bullet. So intended audience means, in part, is your session designed for people who are new to the field? Is it designed for people who are in a kind of an intermediate place where they have some experience, or maybe some experience in certain areas, but other things are new? Is your session designed for people who have a lot of experience? Or is it a mix? Is it something that really could run across all levels? But part of the intended audience is also thinking about, is this a session that is, for example, performance space specific? Is it all about strategies or accessibility needs in a theater setting? Or is it more focused on museums? Or are you really speaking to live collection spaces? So things like zoos and botanical gardens and aquariums. Is it a session that really is very broad and that you could come to it from any type of organization and take something away? And of course, within any of those things that I've mentioned, there are different types of museums, different sizes of museums, historic houses. There are venues that have both indoor and outdoor spaces, etc. So when you get into the proposal part, you'll have an opportunity to talk about who your audience is, or I should say, check boxes about who your audience is. And as you all are familiar with, each organization also has different roles. Are you speaking specifically to accessibility coordinators? Is this a session on training visitor services staff, etc.? All of that information will be helpful for you to think through your proposal. Is a requirement for people to have some familiarity with the topic ahead of time. And actually, I shouldn't say requirement, because the conference is not set up in a way where you have to register for the different sessions. On the other hand, that information is important. If someone really needs to have fundamental access knowledge before going into a particular session, they should know that ahead of time so they're not lost once they get in there. There's an option for you to add additional information. that you think should be considered in the review. And that's optional because many session proposals don't require something like that. But sometimes there is something important that someone wants to insert there. The session outline is a very important piece of this. And we'll talk about that more later. The presentation type. So there are different session formats, and I will go over that a little bit later. And your presentation team, if that's applicable. And one thing I want to stress here is that you don't actually have to have everyone on your team ahead of time. So for example, if you know that you would like to present with someone from a different type of institution, or you've had some preliminary talks with someone, but you haven't had time to sit down together and really flesh things out, then absolutely you can write a proposal. You can say that your team is tentative. You can say that you're interested in working with people from other organizations, but you need help finding those contacts, or you haven't finished the conversation. Anything like that is absolutely fine. And before we move on, are there any questions about this piece? Okay, all right. And could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so I just want to go over, I'm expanding on what I just did. So this slide says from title to outline, and these are really key pieces of your proposal submission. So title, if you want to write something that's catchy, that's fine. But please, it needs to be clear and concise. It should be short. To be quite honest, we had some titles in last year's proposal submissions that were longer than the descriptions. And that's just a little bit too much. Happy to have all of that information in other parts of the proposal submission, but the title should be aiming at something short that people can take a quick look at and have an idea of where you're going. For goals, so the goals are really focused on what are your takeaways? What is it that people attending your session are going to take away with them? Is it information? Is it a new skill? It is an idea that's going to drive something forward that is going to help them with policy or whatever it is. So again, that's 1 to 3 goals. It is fine to just have 1 goal, and it's fine to have 3 goals. When you start getting beyond that, there often isn't time in your session to hit all of those. So again, the goals are really focused on what are the attendees coming away with? What would you like them to learn? So the description is, I think of this sometimes as if I'm scanning a program book to make a decision about where I'm going to go, that description for the session gives me a little bit more information than the title. Of course, it's not going to give me the whole outline or anything like that, but it's a concise, specific way of communicating what you want people to know. So if you have an acronym, please don't have an acronym in your description. Spell it out. Even though we may all be working in accessibility, it doesn't mean that someone will necessarily understand what you're trying to communicate there. Everyday language is great. Plain, clear, specific. Really encourage people to kind of go in that direction. If you can do that and embed humor or something that's really inviting, of course, that's lovely. But really, what will work for people trying to get a quick snapshot of what it is you're trying to do. The outline is really the how of it. How are you going to accomplish your goals? What are you going to do in this session? So, and I do not mean that you have to do it to the minute. What we're looking for are rough sections, like for example, maybe you'll give a short presentation, and then after that, maybe there will be a demonstration or some Q&A. Maybe there's a hands-on component. Those are the kinds of things that you want to put in your outline. How is your time distributed? And lastly, for this section, although this is not in a separate area, for you to really consider the modes of engagement, because that is a really, really important part of LEAD. If you have a presentation that is mostly one or more people talking, and you only have 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, that's probably not enough engagement. So that's something that would be really important to rethink. How do you want people to really be able to take your ideas, take your information, take whatever it is that you're sharing or teaching, and understand it, have a chance to really either discuss or ask questions about it or practice it, depending on what type of session it is. Okay, are any questions right now?
Hi, Anna, this is Sarah, one of the moderators. We do have 2 questions. The first is there a preference for cross-departmental or multi-institutional proposals?
Cross-departmental or multi-institutional?
Yes, is there a preference for proposals that include those?
Right. It depends on what type of proposal you're writing. It is really does make a big difference to have multiple points of view. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that when we go over the conference session formats. So I'll say generally, that's great. That is a plus. But sometimes within an organization, there is something that happens to be within a department that really needs its own session. But in general, yes, that kind of presenter diversity is a good thing.
Wonderful. The second question, actually, we've had a few more come in. The next one is, can you elaborate on the different types of presentation types?
Yeah, I'm going to do that next.
Okay. Is there a comprehensive list of the past few years' session topics that we can look through to see what topics have been covered?
Such a good question. I'm going to defer to Jessica on that one. We may be getting back to you in the follow-up email. What I will say though is it's really important to have new content at the conference. However, there are some things that are essential to include in almost every conference. And one of the things that I didn't talk about at the beginning is where we are right now in this work. And we did find last year, there was no LEAD conference for a few years. And over that time with COVID in particular, there's a lot of change and a lot of rebuilding in the field. So, so for example, someone who's brand new to the field is going to need something a little bit different than someone who's been in the field for a long time. So new content really important, but there's the evolution of different work and also always a need for kind of the foundation of accessibility. Other questions right now, or should we go on to the conference session formats?
That's all the questions for now, Hannah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, next slide. So there are 3 different types of sessions at the conference. The primary, most of the sessions, the greatest amount of sessions are 80-minute concurrent sessions. They happen during the 3 days of the main conference. And there are 4 different session formats for that. The classroom format, a panel discussion, skill building, and a think tank. And just briefly, a classroom format is looking at a session that provides practical tips, tools, and resources that attendees can use to start or improve initiatives, programs, or services. A panel discussion offers multiple perspectives on or approaches to a single topic. So these proposals must include presenters from more than one organization or more than one role, or that have more than one role, as well as a moderator who will ensure that panels each have an opportunity to present and can kind of weave everything together. Skill building. These are hands-on sessions that are designed to teach participants a tangible skill. So presenters really need to devote a significant amount of session time to activities allowing participants to practice or refine the skills introduced during the session. And a think tank is highly interactive. The presentation time is very short, no more than 15 minutes. They're discussion-based, maybe small group-based, and they are led by one or more moderators / facilitators who introduce the topic and then really leads that conversation and session participants through that process. So, so those are the 4 different concurrent session types. And just to give a couple of examples. So an example of a classroom session could be that it could be theater-based, for example, with a house manager sharing assistive listening device training and troubleshooting, kind of from A to Z, just one example. It could be focused on service animal policies and systems, but it could also be, excuse me, it could also be focused on something that is more interactive, including, for example, if you have teaching artists in your institution, then perhaps that could be a classroom where you are, this could also be skill building depending on how it's handled, but where you are designing either a specific or inclusive program and all of the nuts and bolts that go with that. A few examples for panel discussions could be something along the lines of representation in ASL interpreted performances and programs. It could be a panel discussion with across different types of exhibition-based venues, for example, an historic house, a science museum, and a children's museum, where you have multiple venues represented, but they're talking about a similar topic. Maybe it's focused on accessibility for families or very young children, or it could be any number of things. Skill building could be, again, it could be a specific activity, or it could also be a skill in delivery, for example, audio description, a particular type of audio description, how to use assistive technology, but in a situation where it's very hands-on, where you actually want people to mess around with something and try something new. Think tank could be, there's so many things this could fall into. It could be something like building community, and you're really gathering a group of people together to talk about building community and how that relates to your particular venue. It could be thinking through some of the issues in cultural institutions around something like intersectionality, where disability, exclusion and oppression intersects with racism, et cetera, et cetera. How is your organization thinking about things like this? So I could give endless examples for all of them, but hopefully this has been a little helpful. Lightning talks. So a lightning talk is very short, it's 15 minutes. Last year was the first year we had lightning talks that were called lightning talks. Previously, they had been called snapshot sessions. And so there was a change. The snapshot sessions had been multiple sessions happening at the same time around round tables in a very large room, or maybe multiple rooms. And so it was changed to have 3 talks sequentially in a space, and they were all at the same time. And I'm bringing this up just because there's a lot of feedback on the lightning talks, and in all kinds of ways, including people wanting more. And so we are taking all the feedback from last year, and we'll take some additional steps to improve them, as we do with all things. But what's key about the lightning talks is it's generally one presenter. There are some exceptions, but it's generally one presenter. It's a short talk. It's 15 minutes. The Q&A, we're trying to figure that out. We had some Q&A last year. Originally with the snapshots, any Q&A, any kind of question or discussion was built into that 15 minutes. So we're talking short. These are very specific, very focused. It may be a compelling idea, or a reflection on a particular experience or event that people feel there's something to learn from, but not something that it really warrants a full session. Sometimes people propose and do a lightning talk as a first step at presenting at LEAD. Sometimes they're not sure if there's enough there or enough interest there, or they feel more comfortable with a 15-minute talk. Often lightning talks lead to fuller proposals in a following year. but it is, again, it's short and it's very targeted. They will happen also during the main conference, which in 2023 will be August 29th through 31st. Capacity building workshops. Capacity building workshops are half days or full days. They're in-depth, hands-on professional development workshops that address a specific topic related to cultural arts access. And the goal really is capacity building, really is to send people home with a whole lot of knowledge and information, a toolkit, whatever is appropriate for that particular capacity building workshop. Those sessions are the 2 days prior to the main conference. So that would be August 27th and August 28th. And any questions related to the conference session formats?
No current questions, Hannah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so we're going to quickly go through into those 4 main types of concurrent sessions. The first up is the classroom. Again, practical tips, tools, and resources. You're sharing something that enable attendees to start or improve initiatives, programs, or services. The information sharing should be through active engagement of participants. If that active engagement is Q&A, if you want active questions, then please be sure to build it in and not just wait till the end. Often we find when all the time for question or discussion is at the end, that's the part that is becomes short. And again, we really ask the presenters come into this assuming all types of learners in your session. Next slide, please. One thing that I forgot to mention, but applies to all of the sessions, is there is a limit of 4 presenters, and that does include your moderator. So sometimes people will have a moderator who is also a panelist, which is totally fine. And of course, as with everything, sometimes there are exceptions, and you can feel free to make a case for that. But this was something that shifted because some of the panels or presenting teams were so large that really people weren't getting enough time either as presenters, and it was really squeezing some of the other pieces of the presentations. So panel discussion do offer multiple perspectives. That is incredibly valuable, and it could be, as we discussed a little bit earlier, different institutions, different size organizations. Sometimes that's really key. You may have a small, medium, and large sized theater, for example, and having all 3 of those perspectives may provide an important piece of an important perspective on whatever the topic is. Different lived experiences, very important. And of course, it's always really important to include people with disabilities if that is an option. And often it is. So you don't have to be, it may be that person is on staff, but if you work with an outside consultant, for example, or community members, partners, et cetera, they can also be part of either your panel discussion or your presentation team for a different type of session. Active and interactive. So please, if you're planning a panel discussion, think about this piece. This is an exciting opportunity for attendees to hear from different people on the same topic, but how can you make it active and interactive so that everyone gets to be engaged and really take in that information. And if there are no questions, I'll take the next slide, please.
Hannah, we do have a few questions. This is Sarah,
Okay.
one of the moderators again. The first is, should applicants choose only one style of session, or can they apply for more than one?
If you are submitting multiple proposals, then choose the format that you feel best works with that particular topic. You don't need to submit your proposal in more than one format. If, for example, if the review team reads a proposal and they think it's a good proposal, they're excited about it, but they're like, yeah, I don't really think this is a classroom. I think it's skill building or whatever, and that's things like that. We'll work with the presenters on. That's really, don't worry about that too much. The information is there to help you think through things, but just any topic, any proposal should only be submitted once. I hope that answers your question.
Next question, do fellow presenters have to attend the conference in person, or can they Zoom in from out of state?
Oh, that's a great question. We do have some remote presenters, and in part it depends on what your proposal is. So for example, if you are proposing something that really does require that has a hands-on piece to it, then they need to be there in person.
The next question might be one for Jessica, but I'm going to ask you, Hannah. Will this conference be live streamed? Some people may not be able to attend due to different reasons and would like to participate as an attendee or a presenter remotely.
The whole conference will not be live streamed. And actually, I don't know, Jessica, maybe I'll turn to you because I know we're still working on this piece. Do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, hi, everyone. This is Jessica. Excuse me, this is Jessica. Yes, we are exploring options for some hybrid opportunities, specifically thinking about content that would work both in person and in a virtual space. So we hope to be able to share more about that with folks soon. Hopefully that is enough of an answer, but yes.
Okay, that was the last question, Hannah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Skill building. So these are hands-on sessions to teach a tangible skill. And the idea is to use the time that way. So introductory and presentation time should be minimal. As someone who's writing a proposal, it would be great to think about and then express in your proposal how the hands-on component will work in the session space. And in that situation, you also have the opportunity to say something like, I need a wide open space for this session. I need X number of tables. And really think about what it is that would make that skill building piece work. Part of this skill building session type is supposed to give attendees opportunities to practice that skill. refine it, to have the leaders of the session either give feedback or interact with them during the session. Often in this situation, there may be a sharing time if that's appropriate, rather than a Q&A, or it could be both of those together. And if there are no questions here, then we could go on to the next one.
No new questions. Thank you, Hannah.
All right. So the think tanks, again, are highly interactive in either discussion-based, or maybe it could be small groups working together and then sharing out and then having further discussion. And often people will work in teams to lead these. And the presentation time is short. And if you're the moderator or the team, one of the things that would be good to convey in the proposal is how are you going to lead people into that conversation? How are you going to wrap up the conversation, so or the session overall, so that people walk away? It's a little bit different than the other sessions. They're not necessarily walking away with a skill. They may be walking away with a whole set of new questions. But what happens? What happens at the end, in part because it is a really different type of session. And no more, if there are no questions here, then we can move on to the next one. And lightning talk, I think I already gave enough information about this one. So I think we can just go on. The capacity building workshops. So a half day or full day, we say 4 to 8 hours, but the reality of it is sometimes there's one that's 3.5 or 8.5 or something. They are the 2 days that are prior to the main conference. They might be on site at the conference center. Often there's the possibility of having it off-site in a cultural institution or other venue. I give you a couple of ideas or examples of that. There have been, over the years, there have been a number of museum or exhibition-based capacity building workshops that have taken place in museums or exhibition-based venues, specifically to be able to use that artwork in practicing different skills that people are learning. So that's one example. Last year, there was full day capacity building on accessibility in outdoor environments, and that was in a park with a building that as part of that whole park complex. So in thinking about this, it's not always possible to have the ideal situation for the capacity building workshops, but because of the time frame, this is a really great opportunity for people to do that, to take advantage of different sites other than a conference room to work with. It should be on a topic specifically related to cultural arts access, which of course could be hundreds of different things. And participants really should leave with enough information and/or skills to be able to put something into use, to really hit the ground running, even if that means that particular next step is making a plan. Some of the things that are helpful to see with that amount of time is, how are you going to structure the day? Where's the time going to be spent, and what are your learning and engagement strategies? One of the really important things with the capacity building sessions is to think about that length of time, so that people can maintain their energy, they can have breaks when they need it. Maybe there's enough variation to address how people take in information and the variety of ways in which people can spend time in a space. So I think that's it for the different types of formats. Any questions about?
No current questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we can move on to the topic tracks. And I see our time is winding down quickly.
Hannah, I'm so sorry to interrupt. A few questions did just come in.
Yeah,
Is it okay for me to ask those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. The first is, with an 8-hour capacity building workshop, how many people's how are people's nutritional needs met? i.e., is there lunch provided?
That is a great question. And yes, that is considered. and it is part of lunch is provided. And I'll just say with any of the something like that, then lunch would also, of course, anyone attending would have the opportunity to talk about allergens or anything like that. And there are breaks. No one expects anyone to go straight through for a full day.
Great. The next question is, the year I was at LEAD in Denver, the capacity building workshops cost additional fees. Are the workshop leaders remunerated?
Yes. Jessica, I don't know, do you want to speak more to this piece? Give a little more information?
Hi, everyone. This is Jessica again. I just answered another similar question about compensation for presenters. But yes, we do share the portions of the income, the registration fees with the capacity building workshop presenters. And then for our concurrent session presenters, you do get a free 1-day pass to come to the conference. And also it includes the option for a 1-year membership to the lead track of the Access VSA International Network.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Hannah.
Is there another question, Sarah?
There are no new questions. Thank you.
Great. So if I could have the next slide, please. So we're going to zip through the topic tracks. And we can include these with a little more information. Actually, there'll be a link to the conference website, and they have all of this information as well. So art education in the community and cultural sector. This one I will say a little bit more about. This is not art education in schools. This is really about what's happening with students and arts education in museums, in theaters, in the community versus in the classroom in a school. So it might involve students in a classroom going somewhere, but it is a little bit different. Building buy-in, the built environment, customer service and staff training, evaluation and research, identity, intersectionality and inclusion, legal requirements. I'll take the next slide, please. Outreach and community engagement, planning and policy, technology, universal design, and accessibility services and programs. You may have already realized that any one session may cover, 4 or more of these, and that's okay. There'll be a choice for a primary and secondary ones, and it's honestly, it's not the most important. It's important, but it's not as important as your proposal itself. And I think maybe Roberto, could you move on to the next slide? Thank you. So really quick recap. The session information is what, why, and who. What is your title and description? Why are your goals? Who is the audience you want to reach? And the session outline is how you plan to do this. And I'm just going to put in a plea. Do not have your outline repeat the description with no further information, because then it will be considered an incomplete application. It can break down the description and expand on it, but it shouldn't repeat it. And we're really at the end. So if there are further questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I think Sarah has put the LEAD email in the chat.
We have, yes, thank you, Hannah. This is Sarah, one of the moderators. We have one new question. Are there any exemplary proposals that you could share with us from previous conferences?
You mean that we could send out to you with the with the email that we're sending out? Or just
my guess are Andy, you're welcome to elaborate on that in chat. My guess is, can you share a really good proposal that was accepted, so that we know what a good proposal is? That's my guess at what the question is.
Okay, got it. Without having the without having the proposals in front of me, I really hesitate to try to describe one. I will. What I can do for you is run through kind of a generalized example, and I would say that would be that someone writes a proposal. They've been in contact with their co-presenters who happen to be from either different departments or different types of organizations, that the title and the description are quite clear, and that the outline, the goals are very clear, and that the outline supports all of those things that they have written previously. And I'm happy to help people if you have more questions about that, or you have a concern. This really isn't intended to make you nervous about writing a proposal. It's just to try to give you as much information as possible. There have been a lot of great proposals written, and a lot of proposals that are clearly great topics and good ideas, and maybe need a little bit of clarification. And if that's the case, then we'll always go back to someone to get that clarification.
Hi, Hannah, it's Sarah, one of the moderators again. We've had a few people chime in chat saying that in the past, the Kennedy Center has provided sort of an example proposal so that people know kind of what to put together. Is that something that we can include with the link to this recorded webinar?
I think probably can, yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was something that had been included. We should have done it last year. Okay. Any other questions?
Not at this time. Thank you. Actually, just kidding. We do have one. As soon as I say that, another one always comes in. Is there Do you provide feedback on why a proposal is not selected? And I'm guessing that means feedback to the person who
Right.
submitted it.
Right. If I recall correctly, we do when asked. But there is not an individual letter that says at length why each proposal was not accepted. And I will say that it doesn't, sometimes there are really good proposals that are not accepted. And it's either because the conference is not the right conference for that proposal, or there are several other proposals. There are also good proposals in the same, on the same topic, et cetera, et cetera. So, so yes, you get some information, and while it'd be nice to be able to give everyone a really detailed understanding of why their proposal was not accepted, I don't think we're able to do that. Although I know last year I had a lot of, I responded to a lot of questions from people who wanted to know more, and I'm always happy to do that.
Okay, now I think we are at the end of our questions.
Thank you, everybody. I'm excited that everyone came, and hoping that you're all considering proposals, or maybe you want to poke someone else who you think would be write a great proposal.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this webinar today. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.